So then we are back with more understandings from the time of the second tabernacle services, very fine Aramaic English translation of the word. This translation comes from the original manuscripts of the prophets of the Tzaielic lineage. So then we can understand the time of the end. As per Yeshayahu the prophet, we find layers of understanding of the spring feast, the autumn feast, and also the returning of the holy cities of the Hamashiach laid waste from many centuries. Reading from Yeshayahu the prophet, it's always important pointing this particular person or then this prophet, because he obviously was very tuned with what the divine was explaining regarding the time of the restoration period and also the time of the autumn feast. As then the last prophet came, as he was saying regarding then the time of the end of the prophecies of the autumn feast, there is also the understanding of the prophecies of the restoration period, and these particular prophecies, they have specific events that must be analyzed. So then the prophecies, they become more and more closer to what they shall be in the future. Now, these obviously is related with events. So then, obviously, the religious aspect of the scripture is not considering these situations, because people that do not expend time studying the scripture and studying history can never claim that the divine is with them in every aspect, because the very prophet that we are speaking of was very much acquainted with many situations regarding the divine in the time of this prophet Yeshayahu. Now then, as far as what's going on in the world, what is then related with the Saudi Arabia and the sons of Ishmael? Obviously, United States has no longer a powerful grip of the type of situation that the people are expecting. Now, it came out a report this very day regarding then the pricing of crude already established by the Saudi Arabia. And then obviously from the standpoint of economy, as the price of crude went as low as 26 a drum, we can absolutely understand the importance of the sons of Ishmael in the prophecy of Yeshayahu, the 23rd chapter. Now then, this particular chapter, Yeshayahu, then gives us a few clues of the sons of Ishmael and the control of the specific trades, and these trades linked up with the kingdom of the East, as China and the Saudis are linked up. We find then that this particular country already set the standards for the price of crude. Now then, as far as what the prophet is explaining regarding then the merchants of the earth, and regarding then the traders who were then honored, but then the very divine being, Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh, regarding then the shaming of these nations. Now then, from the standpoint of what these nations are involved with, the 1,000 years of deceit has ended in 2008 and 2009. And what then caused this particular section of the economy of having such great and huge reformation because the economy of the West is obviously bankrupt, and the system where then Daniel the prophet explains in the 11th chapter, he states very clearly that a system would be rejected. So then, these dynamics from nation to nation regarding the dynamics of the situation, except the viewpoint of the atomic power, gives us a few clues of what nations are involved with this particular problem, and then later on becoming the Autumn Feast. Now obviously, the prophet Yeshayahu, he was then dealing with a Hebrew language that was from the original Hebrew language and not a translation from the Greco and the Romans. Now there is a huge distinction from Paleo-Hebrew and modern Hebrew. The modern Hebrew, there are lots of adaptations and lots of situations that are not encountered when studying the Paleo-Hebrew. Now then, people these days, they are self-opinionated more than are scholars. Now then, what the scriptures are explaining as far as the knowledge spoken of by the prophet Hosea. Very importantly, many people who are searching for authority, these very people sometimes have not even the basic knowledge of what the situation of the past regarding Yeshayahu, and not even the understanding regarding then the prophecies of the time of the end, and not even thinking of what it means, the Autumn Feast. Now then, Yeshayahu the prophet is explaining sections of these particular prophecies, where then he points out that the merchants of the earth who are involved with this older system, they are going to be put to shame. Now then, why is the prophet is making mention of these nations being put to shame? What shame is this particular prophet speaking of? Now then, making an analysis of what then the prophet was explaining versus what then the government was doing, those are very direct but then contrary situations, where then the prophet is pointing out problems regarding the nations being used to many other actions of stealing, actions of not studying the Torah, and not studying the times and the seasons. So then, what came out yesterday are then the sons of Ishmael already making the price of the drum of crude. Now the main question is, where is the United States in this situation? Speaking of from the viewpoint of the prophet Daniel, and then explaining what this prophet was given as far as the situation regarding the despised system. Now then, Daniel is explaining portions that Yeshayahu, Yirmiyahu, Zechariah, these great prophets, they explain in their own time when they were alive in their own generation, and then each of them were then obviously lining up for the time of the end. Now Daniel, understandably, is explaining what Yeshayahu was already talking previously. Now the 21st verse of the 11th chapter, Daniel explains very precisely, and when these people they go into combat and standing up and this despised one shall not give any honor. Now then, in pure Hebrew, understandably, the concrete and not abstract form of Hebrew, the Paleo-Hebrew, explains these as a system because an economical system is abstract. Now, from the Hebrew perspective, what then Daniel is explaining as far as the economy of the time of the end? Firstly, Daniel was a prophet for the behalf of the Gentiles, and not as much as then for the people of the faith. So then, because of the exile situation, and many of the nation's inhabitants were then living abroad, this particular prophet was very knowledgeable regarding systems. Now then, we find the sons of Ishmael, and also we find the Arabs, and also the Muslims, and they obviously are the main owners of the top of the holy mountain, where then the third temple, then at some point, depending on what deal they must make with the sons of Ishmael, and what decisions they make as far as what they should do with the third temple. Now then, when the people don't take the time to study the scripture and study history, they begin to make a world of their own. Their own minds become stuck in ignorance and also in form of divinity without any kind of understanding of what the scripture is making reference of. Now then, the Saudis have decided that the price of crude for this year should be from 60 to 70 USDs. Now the United States then has no power over the situation because they are absolutely involved with a huge problem of their own regarding their own economy. And not only this, but this particular situation of Jerusalem, the United States, without the unanimous or the impartial consent from United Nations, has decided that Jerusalem should be the capital of the nation. Now then, it's very interesting related with this, because the reason why the United States is given Jerusalem for the nation is because the economy of the United States is ruined. So then, obviously from the religious viewpoint, the understanding of Judaism and Christianity, or Judeo-Christian, is then what is driving the United States to use the religious aspect of this relationship in order to try to fix the economy. So then, this situation requires many kinds of analysis of the Holy Scripture and also regarding the prophecies. Now then, since the United States has no more power over the crude price, what is next as far as the Petro USD being replaced by then the Petro Yuan? The analysis of the time of the restoration period also includes the economy. The divine nature, as Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh is, the verb Hayah, we find then that the divine nature has not only given salvation through the scripture, but also conditions of the salvation of the economy. So then, regarding then this particular prophecy, we find situations and circumstances where then United States is trying very hard of convincing the religious people who are involved in many kinds of a ridiculous situation, where then the building of the third temple in both economies of Jerusalem and United States are trying to join so they can try to edit the scripture, so then they can use this new version of scripture so they can include lesbians, homosexuals, and also making a new era for the religious aspect the United States is trying to push forward. Now then, as we can understand, the nations that do not hold the Torah, the Holy Scripture in its original form, they are always subjective of many of sins. They are absolutely disgusting. So then, why the situation regarding the economy is so vital regarding the viewpoint of the political and economical situation? Now, Daniel the prophet was a very powerful prophet. He knew very closely the economical aspects of the time, and he informed many kinds of situations regarding then what the nations of the end would do in order to try to fix the economy, and yet promoting the distortion of the Torah. Because not only the modern Hebrew is modified, but then the true Hebrew, the true scriptures, are then revealing circumstances where then the social, economical, and also religious aspects are being revised. So I'm going to make more analysis of these. So then stay tuned, much more coming up.